Welcome to the body tracking tutorial for Spark AR. We are going to be building a game and let us get right into it. So the first thing that we need to do is open Spark AR, and we can see a whole bunch of templates in the background, and we want the body movement template. So let us just click on that and we are ready. So the first thing we need to do is turn off the visibility for the background and the rig null object. So I just used a video that I found online, and we are going to turn on the visibility for the tracking points as well. And we can see that there are about 20 points on the person's body. So we're just going to pause this person for a second. And we only need 5 tracking points, so we're going to delete the ones that we don't need. So we need the top of the head, the left wrist, the right wrist, the left knee, and the right knee. So let us delete these. And right click, delete. Give it a second. Right, so as we can see, we have all the tracking points we need at this point in time. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to add 3 rectangles. Let's duplicate that. And let's name the first one background. Name the second one person. And the third one cover. Go to the layer and add the background to the background layer. Keep the person on base and add a new layer and name it cover. Take your tracking points layer and pull it above your base layer. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make it full width, full height, and pin it to the sides. Full width, full height, and pin it to the sides. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to import a couple of assets from our computer. So the next, okay, hold on. So you will not be able to see my screen, but I am importing a background image, an image with a couple of joints, and the sphere that I created, as well as a bubble pop animation that can be found in the asset library over here. So go to your asset library, pick whatever sound you like, make sure that it's 1 second or 0.00 seconds. Great. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 3 materials. Just duplicate that. Just pull this up, duplicate, and name it background. So we're going to allocate these 3 materials to the rectangles that we created. Person and cover. Great. So make the background shader type flat. Add the texture, which is the background that we imported. Let me just show you what the texture looks like. There we go. And then the joints, it's just a circle, keeping in line with the vaporwave theme that I've decided to go for. Then add the person, make the shader type flat, add the camera texture, and then we're going to turn on the alpha. We're going to go to camera, go to segmentation, we want person segmentation, go back to persons and add the person segmentation mask. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to go to cover, material, make the shader type flat, and give it the same background. Then we're going to go back to our rectangles and we are going to allocate every material to their rectangles and cover. There we have it. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add two 2D text elements. So we can start off with one and just center it, change the text to score, and open edit 2D object, and let us make this a white. Then we want to duplicate that, and the second one we want to name it score placeholder. Then we want to drag that down slightly, make that 0, maybe give it I want to make it a hot pink color. There we go. Then go back to cover and make turn the visibility off, and let us just restart. Why is she in the corner over there? Oh, full width, full height. Don't forget to do that. Pin it to the sides. And there we go. There we have it. Go back to your person and add a color so that it looks like she is somewhat immersed in the scene. The next thing we want to do is go to the tracking points and add the joints. Then go to your tracking points in your scene panel, select all of them, and make the scale 1500. Is that too big? Let's make it 1000. Whoops. 1000 and 1000. Great. And that is about it for now. Oh, one more thing. Go back to your materials, go to background, turn off your depth to right to depth and the depth test. Go back to person, turn off right to depth, and then leave these two render options as is. Great. So let us make this a little bit smaller. Go back into 3D object mode. And then we're going to take the sphere and we're going to drag and drop it above tracking points. Let's just move that there so we can't see it. So let us make it 60, change the scale on the X, Y, and Z axis. Go to your material, make that let's make it a blue. Turn down the roughness so it gives us a bit of a metallic feel. Alright, then go back to your tracking points material and we need to turn on the alpha test. There we go. And let us just go back to the sphere and make sure that nothing gets cut off. So the sphere, add it to its own layer, and make sure it's above the tracking points. Let's just see something. Okay, it's disappearing. Add it to base. Let's see something. Tracking points. Add it to cover. Okay. So we want to keep it there. Let's go back to our material. Let's just fix this quickly. Tracking points. There we go. Okay, so turn off your write to depth render option on your tracking points. Great. The next thing we want to do is we want to open the patch editor. So go to show map and go down to the patches, and these are the patches we are going to be using, and all of these patches basically give us the 2D coordinates of the body tracking points of each of the points we've selected. And as we can see, the ones we've deleted don't have input patches, and these are the only ones that have input patches. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to randomize the position of this sphere on the screen. So add a loop animation, get a transition patch, click on the sphere, and make sure that's 0, and get a random patch. So we want to randomize where the sphere lands on the screen. So for the first random patch, we are going to randomize the X values, but we only want it to be within a specific range. So let's just make sure that's 0, 0, and let us use this as the range. So that's your X value, and then get another random patch, and we want the Y values. So go to Y, copy, and go up, copy, and then we want to turn this into one value, so we're going to get the pack patch to a vector 3, and we're going to keep that as 0. So we don't want the sphere to just come from the middle of the screen. We want it to look like it's coming into the scene. So let us just pull the sphere back, get that value, copy, make it the starting point of the Z axis, and let us plug the pack patch into the end value, get the input for the position of the sphere, and there we have it. So it's going a little bit fast, so we'll make that 5. And let us comment around that. I want to make this comment, maybe make it red, and there we have it. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add a couple of patches to detect a collision. So go to every patch with every point with an input patch and add an unpack patch, because we only want X and Y values in order to detect the collision. Unpack, 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 and unpack. Great. We need to go back to our loop animation and add a sender patch. Name the sender coordinates. I can't spell today. And change that to a vector 3. Great. Then go back to this area where we added all of the unpack patches and add a receiver. Change the receiver to the coordinates receiver and get an unpack patch for that as well. So the logic for this is that when the sphere is in line with one of the tracking points, we wanted to update the score. So that will mean that the x values of the sphere and the x values of the tracking point, as well as the y values of the sphere and the y values of the tracking point, those need to be equal in order to trigger a collision. So we're just going to set that up. So every tracking point needs 2 equals patches, one in the y output and one in the x output. Equals x, y. So we need both of these to be true in order for the pulse to trigger. So we're going to add an AND patch. And then from your z value, from your coordinates, add a less than patch. And we're just going to leave that there for now. Then go to every single one of the tracking points, unpack patches, and add an equals patch. Whoops. And just drag this down for now. So we are going to group everything so that it looks nice and neat. X value, y value equals x value, y value equals drag it down, x value, y value, and the last one equals x and equals y. If you like your patches to be nice and neat, you can add another receiver patch and then select the coordinates receiver and put it halfway down the list of patches so that everything looks neat. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an AND patch to each of the pairs of equals patches. And there we go. So take this equals patch, this AND patch, and just drag it a little bit further up because we're going to need that. Then go to the first 2 AND patches and add an OR patch. Connect those 2 with an OR patch. So it will either update when the sphere is in contact with the head, wrist, or knee. And then add another OR patch and connect the other 2 AND patches with the OR patch. Then connect the 2 OR patches together, and then connect the last OR patch with another OR patch, but connect the AND patch to that OR patch. There we go. So we have the less than patch sitting on its own on top over there. So the logic behind this, once the sphere is in the scene, then only do we want it to trigger. So if we don't do that, it can trigger while it's over here and out of the scene, and that's not what we want. So if it is less than, let's make it 200, and it has the same coordinates, x and y coordinates, as one of the tracking points, then we want it to trigger. And there we go. So let us add a pulse patch, and then go to all of your equals patches and make the tolerance 50. So the scale is quite big. There we go. And there we have it. So let us just check. Give it a second. Let us use a different video. There we go. And it is working. The next thing we want to do is we want to group all of these patches so that everything looks nice and neat. Drag it from the top and zoom in, right click, group. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add a sender and make that a pulse and name it collided. So we also want to add a anti-loop block. So go to your assets and go to blocks and search for game anti-loop. And there we go. So the anti-loop block has been added. Take that, drag and drop it into the scene. Then get the input for the anti-loop block and add it to the pulse patch. Great. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add an animation when the collision is detected. So go to animation, go to your patches and add an animation patch. And add a receiver. Choose the collided receiver and plug it into the play input. Go to your sphere, get that scale, add a transition patch, make the starting value 60, 60, 60 for the X, Y, and the Z axis. And there we go. So when the collision occurs, it completely disappears, and that's not what we want. So we're going to add a delay patch, make it 1 second and reverse. Now let us restart the game. And there we go. And it's back. Great. So we're just going to add a comment around that. Make this color blue. The next thing we want to add is we would like to have a sound when it collides. So first we're going to go to add assets, add audio playback controller, choose the bubble pop, add object, add a speaker, turn off the audible, and let's just restart that. There we go. So we're going to get the play input and we're going to get the reset input. So go to collided, add a switch, and we want that to turn on. Then after a 1 second delay, we want it to turn off. We also want it to reset. So let us just try that again. Give it a second. There we go. There we go. The next thing, sorry, is we want to add a timer. So right click, add a receiver patch, and this receiver will be the collided. So every time there's a collision, we want the score to increase. So add a counter from the collision, make the maximum count, it's just 9,999. Go to add assets, then add JavaScript. Click on JavaScript, script.js, and add to patch, make it a number. Change this to score and add it to the score. So let us restart that. And 1, 2. There we go. Okay, we know it's working. 3, 4. So there's a bit of a number jump over there. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a pulse patch. We're going to add a delay. And we're going to add a switch patch. And we're going to connect that. This is going to prevent it from jumping to the next, to 2 numbers instead of 1. So let us go back and test that. Come on. Okay. Let's just make sure that's working. We need to make the delay 1. Sorry. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there it would have doubled, and it didn't. So we are in the clear. All right, so this was the first part of the tutorial, and we will jump into updating the score over here, where we need to take a scalar and turn it into a string, and we are going to be using scripting to do that. So I'll see you in part 2. So we are going to open our script.js file, and we're just going to delete all of these comments. So they've imported our scene module for us, as well as the diagnostics, which we will use for debugging. And we're going to delete everything in between the function. And we are going to import the patches. Require patches. Then we're going to go inside of our function, and we are going to get the placeholder. Find first. So we named it score placeholder. Then we're going to get our value from the patch editor. We're going to declare that variable, name it score, patches, outputs, get scalar, and we named it score. Then we're going to bind these two, so we're going to say placeholder dot text, is equal to brackets await score, lowercase, and we need to change that to a string, and there we go. So let us save this file, and we will go back to Spark. Now let us restart the game, and we see that it is working. Restart, there we go. And 1, update. Great. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to restart the game with a screen tap. So go to your rectangle named cover and make that visible. Right click, add a screen tap patch. Right click, add a runtime patch. And then get the visibility. So on screen tap, we want that to become visible. So we want it to be turned on. And then runtime, get a greater than patch and make the second input 1 and turn it on. And let us restart that. Whoops, we want it to be the other way around. So runtime will turn it on, screen tap will turn it off. And there we go, screen tap. Tap the screen. Simulate touch. Screen tap, there we go. And we only want this sphere to come into the scene once we've tapped the screen. So we are going to take the screen tap patch and create a switch patch. And we are going to plug that into there and let us restart. There we go. Great. The next thing we want to do is we want to add an instruction. So go to device, go to custom instructions, select tap to start. And let's see where there it is. Let us just drag this to the top. Of our patch editor. And there we have it. So generally speaking in Spark, the game can only run for about 60 seconds if a person is recording it. So there isn't anything that is going to end the game. So this will essentially just be a game that continues running. If you want to add maybe at the end a screen that says tag a friend, use that as an outro maybe. But we are just sticking to a plain and simple color. So it says tap to start. And there we go. Bloop. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are going to try and make tutorials every week. And follow me on Instagram at ARwithCam. And I will see you guys in the next tutorial.